Euphoria, bliss, the celebrations, I mean, the relief, the vindication of all the time spent into following this team and this group of players. I mean, okay, so last night, the U.S. men's national team beat the Mexican national team in Denver, Colorado in the finals of the Nations League. And although the Nations League is kind of this new made-up tournament, tell that to the players who were on the field last night and the fans who were in the stands. It was an incredibly emotional game, and it had the feeling of a very important final of this very important region. Because really, you know, what was being played for in this game was the dominance, the new kings of CONCACAF. This idea that this new wave of American talent was going to sweep away the Mexicans and put them in the rearview mirror. So the Mexicans were playing to show the young Americans that, nah, this is still our region, and the Americans were playing to say, no, we're the new kings in town. This is our time. And my goodness, was it just a battle. All right, guys, let's get into it. We're going to review it all today. I've got some notes typed up. We're going to jump in. We're going to take as deep a dive as I can take in the limited amount of time because, I mean, last night was just a three-part novel of action that took place. So let's get into it on the other side of the jump. My name is Sam. Welcome to the Yank Report. This is a show where we talk about the U.S. men's national team, and it is a truly wonderful time to talk about that subject because, boy, this team has had a lot of high expectations and they are coming to fruition and then some right now. If you're into that kind of thing, if you're new to U.S. soccer and you want to follow along with the team, you can follow all the information and all the things that are upcoming and everything right here on this channel. So please hit that subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel, please hit the like button. It is the best way you can support the channel. It helps the videos go out to more people, helps spread the channel. Thank you guys so much for hitting the like button. I know you guys have been crushing it. Let's try to hit 350 likes for this video, please. 350. Let's see if we can do that. So even before this game started, there was just controversy coming in. As Roger Gonzalez reported, first, the U.S. decided to go with a three-man back line. The lineup that we put out was Zach Steffen in goal, Mark McKenzie, John Brooks and Tim Ream as center backs, DeAndre Yedlin and Serginho Dest as our wingbacks, Kellen Acosta and Weston McKennie in the middle, Gio Reyna and Christian Pulisic as our attacking midfielders, and Josh Sargent up top. And I'm sure the name that's screaming off the page is Tim Ream. In my preview video, I said that I hope that Greg Berhalter went with Matt Miazga over Tim Ream, but he opted to go with Tim Ream. And I think it's clear by his roster selection that what he wanted to go for in a lot of these positions was defensive stability and experience. And I know experience is one of those things that I kind of harp on a lot. I talk about it a lot on this channel, and a lot of times whenever I talk about it, people tell me, like, you know, experience is overrated, that a lot of these young players are playing big games in front of big crowds and Champions League and stuff like that, and these Champions League games are bigger, more important experiences than the CONCACAF games, so they'll be ready for CONCACAF. And guys, I think it was pretty clear, I mean, just from kickoff, that I don't know how many Champions League games you guys have watched, but it is not quite the same thing as a USA-Mexico game or even that USA-Honduras game, and it's not going to be the same thing as a CONCACAF away game. It's just a totally different set of variables that these players have to deal with, and we saw that very early on. I mean, within the first minute of the game, Mark McKenzie gets a simple back pass back from DeAndre Yedlin. He tries to play an outlet pass to Weston McKennie, and he plays one of the laziest sloppy passes that he's probably ever played in his career. I mean, Mark McKenzie is a professional soccer player. He came up in the Philadelphia Union Academy. He's been a special soccer player since he was a kid. He's been destined for Europe since he was a kid. He makes his move to Genk in Belgium, a very respected club and a very respected league. He actually plays for a trophy this year. He wins a trophy. I believe he starts in the game that wins the trophy. So this is a player that has a ton of experience, has been playing soccer at a high level for his entire life. But then in this moment, within the first minute of this game, something short circuits in his brain, and a pass that he's completed his entire life, he gives it straight to Tecatito. Tecatito brings it one-on-one with Zach Steffen and just kind of takes his head off with the ball, and it's 1-0 Mexico. So I feel like the call for experience in moments like this, you saw it. You saw that a special type of emotion was required for this game, that this game was going to require players to bring it at a different level than maybe they're used to bringing it with their club teams. And some of the young players who never experienced that, they were able to rise to that occasion, and others who are really talented players, they just didn't rise to that occasion. Others, didn't rise to it at first and kind of grew into it as the game went on. But, this Mexico game was a test. It was a test in a lot of different ways, and I think that we learned a lot about a lot of different players within this game. We're in the first minute of the game. The USA is down 1-0, and after we're down to 1-0, we start hearing the olays from the Mexican crowd, and that creeping just anxiety starts creeping into your chest, and you feel the walls close in on you, and you feel like this might be a very long night. At 23 minutes in, Mexico gets a corner kick. Hector Herrera plays a short corner, gets the ball back immediately, plays in a nice ball to the back post, and that ball is headed home by Hector Moreno. Mexico's up 2-0. At that point, I pretty much put my head in the cushions of my couch and wished for the darkness to overcome me. But somehow out of that dark, a light came, and that light was VAR. And of course, VAR would go on to play a huge part in this game. But at this point, the VAR showed that the Mexican player was mercifully offsides, and it was once again 1-0. And boy, I mean, we got away with one right there. Not that he wasn't offside, because he was, but he didn't necessarily need to be. I mean, it could have very easily been 2-0 right there if that Mexican player would have just maintained composure a little bit and stayed on side. A few minutes after getting that lifeline with the VAR decision taking away that Mexican goal, at the 26th minute, the U.S. gets a corner kick themselves. Christian Pulisic takes a corner kick. Weston McKennie rises up, and we saw this multiple times during this game. He rises up like a dolphin breaching the ocean, coming up for air, just sails above everyone, puts a header on a ball that goes to the back post. The ball deflects right out to Gio Reyna. Gio Reyna puts it away past Memo Ochoa, and it's 1-1 USA. And they show Claudio Reyna in the stands. All the old-time American fans get a single tear that drops from their eye. Suddenly, the U.S. has another lifeline, and we're right back in this game. That was just the 26th minute, and we had a whole lot of game left. Now, at this point in the game, the U.S. has sort of kind of switched it up tactically. We started with a 5-man back line, but at this point, Tim Ream has kind of shifted out to a left back. Serginho Dest is playing further up the field, and we more or less have a 4-man back line. It was kind of an interesting wrinkle. And although Mexico had the bulk of the possession and they had the bulk of the chances in this game, it wasn't like we were just giving up like super gill-dead chances throughout the game. We did give some up, but it wasn't. It wasn't crazy bad. It wasn't like that period against Switzerland where we were just getting wrecked right and left. In fact, I'd say Mexico didn't have like a golden opportunity until the 42nd minute. And that 42nd minute, it was kind of that same old song that we've been hearing over and over again. Mexico plays a ball over the top to Lozano. Lozano is one-on-one with Zach Steffen. Zach Steffen comes up big and kind of saves it. I mean, Lozano, not the best one-on-one opportunity from Lozano. Like, he probably should have done better with that, but, credit to Zach Steffen, keeps it 1-1 right before halftime. So after halftime, the U.S. is probably grateful to be going into the half 1-1. Mexico has had the bulk of the possession. They've had the bulk of the chances, and slowly but surely the intensity is rising with every minute, with every tackle. I mean, the scrums are starting to form. The crowd, you can feel, is getting restless. At the 59th minute, Serginho Dest is pulled for Tim Weah. Tim Weah comes on, and you can tell the look in his eyes that he is ready for this game. Weah did not need any time to grow into this game. He came with the intensity necessary for this kind of matchup. So in the 78th minute, Mexico finally makes that move that, if you ask any U.S. fan about this game, they'll probably talk as if this move was made in the 30th minute, because every time this man touched the ball, it was terrifying for a U.S. fan. Diego Lainez comes onto the field, and for a few minutes there, he's matched up against Tim Ream. And Diego Lainez, for all the hate that he's gotten from U.S. fans for not scoring a ton of goals with his club, he was definitely a factor in this game every time he touched the ball. Now, just about a minute after coming on, Lozano makes a run across the U.S. box. He finds Lainez in the right corner of the U.S. box. Lainez has Tim Ream in front of him. He cuts cuts it back into the middle. He finds a window between Acosta and Tim Ream, and then he rifles a shot through McKenzie's legs into the goal past Horvath. I think Ream's primary job was not so much to stop Lainez, instead to slow him down for the double team to come in. And whenever we saw it was either Acosta or later on it was Tyler Adams were there to support Tim Ream, and then behind Tim Ream there was usually another center back. So even though it was really dangerous having Ream versus Lainez, we did have waves of defense behind them, and Mexico still had a lot of work to do. And I think that's important to note throughout this game. Mexico did take a lot of shots, and they did have a lot of opportunities, but most of those opportunities, they had U.S. defenders in front of them, and they were contested shots, and they really just had to work for everything. And I think that was sort of the basis of the defensive plan. We don't have defenders who can stop these guys. Like, realistically, I think that's one thing that, we don't think about when we talk about roster selection, and we don't think about whenever we criticize Berhalter for going with Tim Ream in this game. Realistically, who do you want him to go with? It's easy to criticize the roster selection in hindsight, but it's really difficult to put it together ahead of the game. Because think about it. A lot of people want to say that it's just like putting the Lego pieces together and making it work, but in reality, it's more like having Lego pieces and maybe like a connector set, and then maybe like a discount Lego set, and then maybe some Legos that used to connect together, but then got warped over time, and you still got to try to make them fit together. It's not like an easy project to do. I don't think that there's one U.S. roster out there, one U.S. best 11 that makes sense in every situation and just doesn't have faults. All of them are going to have faults, particularly whenever you look at our fullbacks. We just don't have good defensive fullbacks. Even Serginho Dest, who's our all-world Barcelona fullback, in this game in particular, and for a few games before that, he just doesn't play defense. He doesn't want to play defense. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if that's going to change over time, but the reality is he doesn't play defense. DeAndre Yedlin put in a decent defensive shift out there on the right, but his defense wasn't that great either. And I know a lot of you guys don't like Reggie Cannon and his defense. And then Anthony Robinson, what is his big weakness on the field? His one-on-one defending. We don't have fullbacks that are going to be able to defend Diego Lainez in space. We don't have center backs that are going to be able to defend Diego Lainez in space. We don't have anybody that can defend Diego Lainez in space. The only hope that we have is to try to put multiple people between him and the goal and hope that works. In this situation, we had multiple people. We had Ream covering the inline, and then we had Kellen Acosta covering the cutback, and then we had Mark McKenzie behind them in case something went wrong. And somehow Lainez found between Ream and Acosta, and then he put the ball between McKenzie's legs, and Mexico has the lead. It's 2-1 Mexico. So not long after that, we have a couple more substitutions, and Kellen Acosta ends up playing left back. And I think that this was a very interesting move because, Kellen Acosta, I never really thought about him playing left back, even though he has played left back for his club team. And if you think about our fullback situation, that we just don't have any fullbacks that can defend, Kellen Acosta is probably one of our better defenders who can actually play left back. I'm not going to pretend like Kellen Acosta is this all-world player and that he's going to be playing in Europe next week for Barcelona or anything like that. He's not a Champions League player. We all know the limitations of Kellen Acosta, but at least he's athletic enough to at least stand in front of Lainez, and he's a plus defender compared to like a Serginho Dest or an Anthony Robinson or something like that. And after we made that move, the threat from Lainez, even though it was still there the rest of the game, we didn't see him get like super clean-cut chances for the rest of the game. In about the 86th minute, the game is halted for the Mexican homophobic chant. Of course, discrimination of any kind does not belong in the game, and to have the Mexican fans, whenever we've seen them play at Estadio Azteca and you hear 100,000 of them screaming out this word, it's very disappointing, and it's tough as a soccer fan that wants to see this game grow, knowing that kind of thing exists, and that's going to hamper the growth of the sport, both in this country and internationally. So I would like to see CONCACAF do some harsher penalties for the Mexican team, other than just making the fans wait around for 3 minutes while chaos ensues on the field. But more importantly than the chant, I think, is the safety of the players on the field. The chant is one thing, but throwing things from the stands, throwing all kinds of objects, just the general lack of decorum out there, and seems like a complete lack of repercussions for anybody that did that. I mean, multiple times in the game we saw players get hit in the face with projectiles from the fan base. Once was Gio Reyna after the Christian Pulisic goal, and another time was a Mexican defender that actually got hit in the face with one of his own fans throwing something on the field. I mean, there's just no place for it. We're seeing in the NBA right now that people are freaking out that like one object is thrown at the player, and that's like been the ESPN story for days. Yet, we've been seeing this in CONCACAF for years. This is not a new thing. We've been seeing objects being thrown at especially American players whenever we go to CONCACAF away games all over the place. And just to see the federation just kind of stand by and just do nothing. I mean, I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard any arrests. We know that there was a camera on that corner of the field. We know that they could go back and look and see who threw what and kind of trace it back and kick those players for life and make examples out of them. But it's not something that's been done, and it's really disappointing to see that. So at this point, it is 2-2, and we are heading into extra time. The first few minutes of extra time were kind of a stalemate, I would say, with mostly Mexico retaining the ball and retaining pressure, the U.S. trying to stay compact and to break out on the counterattack. In one instance, in the 107th minute, Tim Weah wins a ball in the center circle. Tim Weah, who was just up for it this entire game and getting stuck in all over the place. He wins a ball, passes back to Sebastian Lletget. Lletget plays a ball straight forward to Pefok. Pefok has a nice layoff to Tim Weah in space. Weah carries it up the right side. He eventually dishes to the overlapping Reggie Cannon. Reggie Cannon plays a ball into the box and finds Christian Pulisic. Christian Pulisic, who at that point had a really tough game. Things were just not lining up for him. He opts to try to split two Mexican defenders. As he goes through, he gets absolutely destroyed. He goes down in the box. The ball gets played out. There's all kinds of chaos, and the referee motions that he's heading once again to VAR. So the referee heads to VAR, and I mean, the just amount of nonsense. I mean, cue the Benny Hill music because all kinds of stuff starts happening. Immediately, Mexican players are trying to get in the face of the officials. We see American players trying to run, get in between the Mexican players and the official. They get to the sidelines, and chaos just continues to ensue. The Mexicans are doing everything that they can to influence the referee. They're trying to get close to him. They're trying to touch him. They're trying to intimidate him. The stewards are just trying to keep everybody back. At a certain point, Tata Martino walks up and just puts his arm around the official while he's in the VAR booth, which clearly you can't do. Like, clearly. And he still does it. He ends up getting a red card, but this just doesn't leave the field. So the referee ends up giving the penalty to the United States. And by the way, whenever he gave that penalty, it was one of the most sauciest penalty gives I've ever seen. It looked like he was casting a fishing rod. I mean, back, the shoulder went back, and he just came over the top. It was a beautiful thing to see. It was very poetic. It was right in, I think, Lozano's face whenever he did it. But after that, man, I mean, after he gave the penalty, just the nonsense continued to ensue. I think probably my favorite moment of the game was that the Mexican players went to the penalty spot and just tried to scuff it up as much as possible. So whenever we finally see Pulisic step up to the spot, there's just like areas of dirt where the Mexican players have just removed the grass around the penalty spot. Anything that they could do. Then, of course, Tata Martino's still out there, so the referee has to go tell Tata Martino, like, hey, you remember whenever I put that red card in your face? That means you have a red card and you have to leave. And Martino's like, I guess I have to leave now. Oh, okay. So by the time Pulisic actually steps up to the spot, I believe 8 minutes have gone by. You know, Pulisic's been criticized for his penalty taking. He's been criticized for his poise under pressure. I can't recall a really authoritative penalty kick from Christian Pulisic, but in this moment, I mean, he had ice in his veins. He had a terrible game up to this point. Nothing was going well for Christian Pulisic up to this point. He had not made a mark in this game up to this point, but he steps up and he delivers one of the most beautiful penalties I've ever seen right into the top right net. And it is 3-2 United States. Pandemonium ensues. Christian Pulisic tears off his shirt. He runs to the left corner flag, and he just gets pelted with drinks and beer and debris from the Mexican fans in that corner. The entire U.S. team pours onto the field. They're all surrounding him. At a certain point, Gio Reyna gets smoked in the face and something, and he goes down. And it's just absolute pandemonium. The Mexican players are still surrounding the ref. There's just still chaos going on. And A beautiful, beautiful goal, a beautiful, beautiful penalty, a beautiful moment. The U.S. are up 3-2. So we go into our second period of overtime with the U.S. with a 1-goal lead over the Mexicans. And, I mean, it is everything you would expect for the last 50 minutes. Mexicans are just pouring it on, just doing everything they possibly can. The U.S., like a vintage U.S. team, just forming a human shield around the goal, just giving everything, putting everything on the line. At that point, Tyler Adams had come in, and you could just see just how incredible a player Tyler Adams is. I mean, his first step is just so fast, and it's so decisive. And he was just there giving double teams, just winning balls, just making smart plays, smart passes. So finally, at the 118th minute of the game, we get our next massive thing that happens, and that is a corner kick that leads to a Mark McKenzie handball shout. Now, Mark McKenzie has his hand out. It's kind of in a natural position, but the Mexican player does head it straight down to his arm. In my opinion, it looked like a penalty kick to me, especially from the angle where you could just see that the ball probably would have gone towards goal had it not hit McKenzie's hand. I mean, it's kind of harsh, but at the same time, that's soccer. So Mexico ends up with a penalty kick. Guardado stepped up to the spot. Andres Guardado, one of the veteran players on the Mexican team. Guardado squares up with Ethan Horvath, the substitute goalie. He tries to put a penalty to Ethan Horvath's right. Ethan Horvath dives down to the right, and just like the forearm of power just keeps that goal out. Now, after the game, they asked Ethan what kind of drink that he wanted after the game, and he said he wanted a Pepsi Max. So I had to go out and just find Pepsi Max. They don't make Pepsi Max anymore. It's now called Pepsi Zero Sugar. But Ethan, this is for you. This Pepsi's for you, my friend. So Ethan Horvath saves a penalty. The U.S. start defending, and for the rest of the game, they kind of close it out from there. The referee mercifully blows the whistle after about, I'm assuming, 18 hours had passed. This is the longest and wildest soccer game I've ever seen. There were pitch invaders. There were people that jumped into the CBS broadcast booth. There was just everything you could possibly imagine. I was watching this game with a friend of mine who is not big into soccer, and by the end of the game, it was like an episode of Game of Thrones, man. There was just twists and turns and so much stuff that happened that he just couldn't believe it. And he's like, is this like this every time? And I was like, yeah, kind of. This is kind of how it goes when USA and Mexico plays. So that was the game. And like, you know, one thing that I don't want to do in this video is like rip any player, because there were some players who didn't put in great performances. There were some players who just weren't up to the emotion of the game and were disappointing. But, you know, that's just such a wonderful win. Just such a time to celebrate that. I don't think that now's the time to just like rip into players and talk about what could have been and should have been. As far as Greg Berhalter, you know, I called him out in the preview video to this, saying that like he needed this game. He needed to show the fan base that he could be the guy that leads the team going forward. And I think that, you know, you can criticize the Tim Ream selection, you can criticize the back three, but one thing that you cannot criticize from this team is that this is a group of players that really cares about each other, that really played for each other. You could see the emotion on the field, the love that they had for one another, the way they would protect each other. At one point, I forget, I think it was Pulisic, went down in one of the ends of the field, and the Mexican fans were throwing all kinds of stuff on him, and Tim Weah stood over him and like created a human shield around him so that Pulisic could lay on the field without getting pelted with stuff. I mean, there was the moment after the game where Ethan Horvath goes down and the whole team dogpiles on him, and then an injured Zach Steffen comes over and just celebrates with him, and it was something special to see. There were so many moments like that showed that, you know, regardless of what had happened over the last two games of this window, regardless of the struggles of the Switzerland game or the Honduras game, like this team like actually cares about each other and they've actually bonded. And I think that that's something that we should at least credit Greg Berhalter to, that he's created that type of atmosphere that makes players want to be there. Now, there was no Yunus Musa in this game, which is, let's not talk about that. Let's not worry about those things in this particular video. This particular video is all about just the celebration of like one of the most incredible soccer games I have ever seen. So that's it for me, you guys. Please tell me about your experience watching this game. What were some of the moments that stood out to you? I know I didn't capture all of them because there was just so much stuff that happened. This was such a long game and just insane from like one moment to the next. So what were your thoughts on that? If you speak Spanish, please leave a comment in Spanish. I would love to hear the Spanish perspective, especially on things like the behavior of the Mexican fans and the chant and all that, kind of culturally, like what your thoughts on that are. Thank you guys for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel, the best way to do so is hitting the like button. I appreciate you guys so much for watching this video and for watching that video yesterday. That video yesterday got 8,000 views in a day. I mean, that's absolutely insane. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. My name is Sam, and this is the Yank Report.